Okay, let everybody else join automatically. And we can get kicked off now very shortly. I'm guessing maybe a few of you have done webinars before. This is my first time presenting one, so we'll see how that goes. In terms of the traditional webinars where I just kind of stand here and talk to you and give a story, I kind of want to use this a bit like a discussion, an open discussion where we get people involved. I don't know about you, but I retain a lot of more information if I'm able to get involved and actually take part in something rather than just sit in this sidelines. If you are up to it and if you are open, feel free to jump in and have a discussion. For me, it's all about taking something important away. A few house rules. As I said, not a traditional webinar by any stretch of the imagination. I really want to try and get as much of a reaction at all. You can use the chat button. You can raise your hand if you want to talk. There's very small numbers actually at the minute, so feel free just to unmute yourself and jump in if you want to have a discussion on any of the bits that we're covering at that time. Or if you want to just leave your reactions, you can do so by the interaction button. Other than that, it's really a case of questions. I'll answer, as I say, numbers are quite small. Happy to do it as we go along, or at the end, towards the end of the presentation, we will have that. So a little bit about the agenda. Brief introduction. Can kick that off with myself now at the minute. For those that don't know me, father of 3, husband, very devoted to my family, worked in leadership for the last 25 years, 35 years in the civil, earthworks, mining, oil and gas industries as well. I suppose I grew up in that old style of leadership where it was very much okay to roar, shout, to get things done. As we've evolved over the last few years, I've found myself evolving more. I'm that type of leader that believes true success comes from being able to get success from our people and investing in our people and growing our people. That's always worked for me. So if I'm a little bit biased towards that approach, you will know where it has come from. My last role before starting SPC Success was operations manager for a company where at the time, whenever I took the role 3 years ago, we were turning over about 22 million. At the end of it, we were turning over nearly 105 million. And as I say, the key to the success was very much people, investing in people, growing the business and moving people into the capable areas. The director used to like to say that I was responsible for every minute, hour, dollar and cent in the company, which can put a lot of pressure on people whenever we are listening to that type of thing. But he was a big focus on time management. Look, I've always known how important time has been. I suppose while you have that responsibility to everybody in the company to make sure the company is successful, it's important that we're using not just getting the most out of our time, but other people within the business as well. So that's where a lot of my time management, I know the pressures of dealing with 100 phone calls a day, 1,000 emails coming in through, more tasks that you can actually get to in any given day. A few of the tips that we discussed in this later on really help go through and how I used to manage that time with a few of these tips that we'll talk about later on. Why time matters, what does bad time management look like? And I'm interested to get all your thoughts on that. We'll touch on a few key points, a few tools that we can use, a few techniques and some effective time management and how it impacts the team morale within the business. We'll also talk about decision making and how that can be closely linked to time management as well. Finally, then I'll touch base briefly on a coaching program. It's time that we're on at the moment, and also a Q&A session at the end of it. My main goal out of this session is to help you get as much out of the time management space as you can. Why is time our greatest asset? I think we all know that time is very important, but sometimes we lose focus of just how important it is. I want to introduce you to Glenn Monaghan, an amazing husband, amazing father. I went to school with Gene in my younger years back in Ireland. We grew up in the same town. Left school, we went into construction around the same time. We had children very much the same age. You can see he's got 5 young kids there as well. And last September, I was back in Ireland and Gene told me that he had 6 months to live, or that they had found cancer through pretty much all parts of his body at that stage. And at the time, obviously, I was devastated. He's a very close friend. The biggest disappointment I had was what he was missing out on with having that time cut short. He wasn't going to see the kids get married, all the other things that come along with it. It just felt like his life had been tragically cut short. And it had a big effect on me. For somebody that managed their time, as I've just talked about how much I invested in time over the years, it did really get me to the point of thinking, okay, things can just be cut short all of a sudden. And that's where I decided I was going to come back, hand in my notice from my high-paying job and comfort zone, and decide to start SPC Success, because it was something I talked about for years. It was something that I was passionate about, seeing people grow, develop. I've been working with some endurance athletes and some leaders for the last 10, 15 years unofficially, but I was always putting it off to further down the line to start the company. Whenever change news came out, it very much I came back from Ireland, handed in my notice, and I decided to move on to the next thing. For me, it took my time management to a whole different level of thinking. I always knew the importance of getting the most out of time, but I didn't realize just how quick putting things off in the future can sometimes be cut really short. So whenever I talk about time management now, I look at it from the perspective of we never know if today is going to be our last day as well. I'm a firm believer that we can't separate the leader from the actual person. The two of them are combined, the two of them go hand in hand. To have good time management at work and bad time management outside in your own personal life, that can cause a lot of conflict as well. Whenever we're going through this, you'll probably hear me refer to both because it is an important aspect. So this is where I'd like to maybe get somebody involved, whoever's up for talking. What does bad time management look like? Who wants to kick off?
And if you want, Clint.
Yeah, good, Chris.
Based on what I've seen, it's always running late for meetings, putting out spot fires, always over promising and under delivery, just consistently being late is the main thing that I've seen.
Totally agree with that, Chris. Gilberto or Kylie, anything to add to that?
Yeah, another aspect of it is when your work-life balance is impacted by either. So, poor time management at work that flows into your personal time, cuts down your family time. Then you've got that snowball effect where it can, cause fatigue and just keeps rolling day on day.
Yeah,
so
we start getting into the burnout phase and we start losing our edge. Yeah, very true, Kylie. Exactly. Gilberto, what have you seen from bad time management? Anything from your end?
Yeah, well, I could say that maybe always being late, running late for meetings or appointments that you could have. That could be reflected in stress as well, because sometimes you have everything on your mind and you can't organize and prioritize and you don't know what to do. So you try to do everything at the same time. At the end, you don't do anything.
Yeah, so it's that productive point of view that we're losing on. Oh, I totally agree. How do we think it affects the team? I'm interested to know.
It could put pressure on your other team members to try and pick up the slack.
Yeah, very true, Kylie. Yeah. Other team members start having to jump in and do a little bit more, which is affecting their family time and things as well, I'm sure. Yeah. Anybody else? Gilberto, Chris?
Yeah, well, that will be reflected in when you can assign the tasks properly. So you don't have effective management of time as well.
So if you're not managing your own time, you're struggling to plan for other people's. Yeah, I get that, Gilberto. Look, I suppose for me, what the aspect that I think that sometimes I look back on leaders that I have worked with very poor time management. They seem disorganized. They always seem flustered. They always seem under pressure. They might be short with the team. They might, take things out on the team. But the team can sometimes lose confidence. I know I never had confidence in leaders like that, which can have a huge effect. Confidence, morale, momentum is huge important things in the team. But if we're constantly going around putting out fires because we have got poor time management skills as a leader, there's no doubt in my mind that it rubs off on the team that we're trying to inspire. I think the most important thing that a leader can be doing is there to lead people in a direction, to take them on a journey. That's why we call them leaders, not managers. We're trying to lead people to where we want them to go. Now, if I'm standing looking at people and they can't lead themselves, I'm not really inspired to follow that. And usually what we find is team leaders that have got very bad time management flows down onto the chaos within the team as well. So that's an important aspect to remember. And then lastly, do we believe that companies are to blame for the time management, or is there more to it? Does anybody have any thoughts on, are the companies to blame? Are they overloading us? Are they loading us up with too much work as leaders? Or where do we sit on this one?
It could be a bit of both. So your own time management and, getting impacted by increasing workloads and whatnot from your company and the higher expectations that, become unmanageable. Yeah.
definitely, Kelly. Look, sometimes the workload can be that set up in such a way, and some companies can run some lean, that there is huge expectation on people to deliver. Chris or Gilberto, anything you just want to add on that one?
Yes, I think that in the mining and construction industry, they have in common that maybe most of the time we are running late and we have delays of the deliveries of the project. So you always have an overload of work, and you need to know when to say that you can or you can't do something, because sometimes you accept work and you are not able to perform that in the best way, or in the time that is requested.
Gilberto, that's a really good point, and it's something where I was going to go to very shortly. Look, it's easy to blame the companies for bad time management. It's easy to say you're loading me up, there's too many things coming at us. And I've been in that position where I thought I just don't have enough time to do everything and get through everything. But then with true reflection, sometimes I had to look at myself, and was I putting my hand up as a leader and saying, actually, I have enough on my plate. I really can't take on much more at the minute. Let's talk about this problem that there is, where there is short resources, and let's see how we can do it. And quite often whenever I had to do that, and usually it was after I had worked too many hours, whenever I got to the frustrated point of wanting to leave, usually whenever I spoke up and I talked about them things, the businesses were very open to listening to that and very open to changing that. So I think it's easy to say that companies are to blame for time management, but quite often what happens is we grow up with a certain amount of traits. We know that we get to who we are in the present day from a lot of previous habits and the ways that we do things as people and leaders. And quite often we can get to the point where maybe we don't feel confident in speaking up enough. Maybe we're just bad with time management. We've just never actually stopped to look at, okay, why am I bad with time management? But if we just pass the blame on to other people, I think we're definitely going to miss out on that potential growth and development to take control of our own time. The way I look at it now, and the way I started to look at it a few years ago, was I'm responsible for my time, because whenever I lose my time, it's not other people that's losing time, it's me. So I don't get that back. I suppose Jean's story definitely reinforced that to me. I had to look at it and say, hey, look, why am I not having time to do all these things? And sometimes you have to make them harder discussions. I do believe that we're all responsible for our own time as well. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't raise the issues with the company, but it's not just as easy as saying it's them. How do you fit it all in? This is a question that I have been asked hundreds of times. I would not exaggerate if I said this hundreds of times over the last 20 years. My personal development journey started about 20 years ago whenever I was overweight. Not very confident at all in life. A lot of doubts, a lot of self kind of questions. And I decided that I was going to take up endurance sports because I was overweight. I had a young family at the time. I was concerned that I was going to potentially not be fit enough to enjoy their later years in life, and maybe even their grandchildren, which is getting closer now, 20 years later. That was my reason to start doing endurance sports, and I've done everything from marathons to Ironman till 200 kilometer runs to 1,000 kilometer runs. I usually train anything between 20 till 30 hours a week whenever I'm training for an event. I'm working 40, 50, well, not 40, it was 40 back in Ireland, certainly 60 to 80 in Australia. People would always say to me, how can you fit it all in? My family was very important to me, so I was always very focused on making sure I was with my family as much as possible as well. And my answer was always the same to people. One, I believe in quality time over quantity of time. And two, I believe that if you have got a strong enough why and you really want to do something, you will find a way to make it happen. I remember whenever I was researching how to do my first Ironman, I came across a piece and it said, you will find a million reasons why we shouldn't do something, but all you need to do is find one reason why you want to do something. And that was very powerful. That's maybe 20 years ago I read that, and it's very much stood out in that time. The other thing I read at the time was, if you want to do this and do it successfully, juggle all the other aspects of life, you're going to have to get very good at time management. So that's also where my time management journey came up. Often it meant getting up early in the morning, Often it meant sacrificing other things that maybe other people were doing. But I had to also create new habits, new processes, new ways of doing things to make sure that I was getting the most out of my time. A few things there, as it says on the second bullet point: identify common reasons for your poor time management. I had to stop and I had to look and go, okay, I've never heard of time management at this stage. I'm 25 or 30 years old. Time management wasn't something I'd ever really thought about too much. I just tried to do as much as possible. But I had to look at what was I procrastinating around? Where was the areas that I wasn't really focusing on too much? And planning, I don't think even existed at that stage of my life. I had to start going on a journey to what really mattered to me. And the way that I did that was I set objectives. I had a priority list in my mind at that stage. Family was my number one priority. It's always been. But often work, which was my number two priority because I had to provide for my family, often that got in the way. And that work-life balance was a real struggle for me at some times. Because I was driven, because I was passionate, because I wanted to succeed. My third priority then was obviously any of the endurance events that I was training for at that time. And all the other priorities, they had to just fit in whenever they could. What I found was whenever I started to set an objective, and call it an objective in the business sense, or goals, or a target, whatever title you want to put on it, it doesn't really matter. It's important if you can find a why. Then break it down into small, manageable steps. Put a plan in place for it. It doesn't matter whether it's running a 1,000-kilometer run. If you think about that as a whole, it blows your mind. If you think about doing a $30 million project, it's the same thing. You know, if you think about the end, having to meet the targets, having to make margin, having to make sure the project's successful, it can be very overwhelming and it can start freaking you out. What I've always tried to do is put a plan in place, break it down into small, manageable steps that's going to take me to that goal. And then it's important, as I said earlier, look at the positive habits, the negative habits, what we're doing. In work, what we'll probably be calling these more so is our processes. What's the things we do on a daily basis that are adding value, that is taking us closer towards that goal, that objective, finishing that project, hitting that milestone, whatever the case is? What's the steps that we're doing on a daily basis that's taking us there? And if we're doing things along the way, which I can guarantee you we are, processes will be in the business that are old, they're clunky, nobody's reviewed them in years, and they'll be slowing down the way we do things. It's important if we can start looking at what they are, drop the negative processes, the things that are taking up our times, the meetings that are adding no value, look at all them things and see what we can get rid of, and then start introducing new, more positive habits. Maybe that meeting that used to take an hour a day with the team, maybe you do a stand-up meeting where it's rapid fire and it takes 15 minutes a day. But we talk about the important things and everybody knows that. That's part of the culture that we have. And then the last step is always to measure that progress on a daily, weekly, monthly, even yearly basis as we go through. We should always be looking to refine that and always taking time to enjoy the wins along the way. I'm interested to know from yourselves, is there anything that stands out from maybe your own perspective or your team's perspective on the areas where you can maybe have some improvement in time management? Is there anything that stands out at this stage?
Yeah, for me, we have a couple of different team meetings that definitely lack that focus. Yeah. So, you know, there's some days where you walk out and you just think that was a half-hour complete waste of time. You know, What did we achieve? You know, can definitely relate to that.
And Kelly, that's
not procrastination about tasks. You know, that's something that I can work on in my daily agenda as well. There are certain tasks that, you know, they're not so favorable ones. So you think, oh, you know, I'll get to it later. And then you come to it and you sit there and you procrastinate and it just takes forever.
Kelly, they're coming up. I've got a little tip for that because I find that's definitely one of my struggles. The ones that aren't as exciting or they aren't as interesting. It's hard to get yourself motivated, and we definitely touch on that. So, Alberto, what about yourself? Is there anything that stands out for you?
Next to you, if you can see that list, and every time or every certain time, you will be like more focused on that. So that would be really, that was effective for me. and that works pretty good.
Okay. Is there any area that you struggle with, Gilberto, do you think, with time management?
Well, sometimes distractions, because sometimes you are handling different kind of stuff in different aspects of your life. You are struggling with your visa, or you are doing something with a course, or something in the work, or something with your family in your country. It's difficult to focus on one thing.
To focus on what you...
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes distractions are really, makes everything difficult.
It does, and distractions is something that we touch on very shortly as well. It's something that I can find. Chris, what about yourself? You're maybe busy in the background. If you can answer, go ahead.
Yeah. My biggest one recently is all about finding why.
Yes.
Yeah, just being around, and I'm sure you guys have all experienced it as well. The lack of people around to do the work is a huge issue across all industries, which then takes your time out. It takes you, you're doing everybody else's job because you don't have those people with you within the team. And to look at the why of why I'm working, why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm in this industry, all that sort of stuff has helped to sort of narrow the focus a bit onto what's important, not only for me, but for the projects that I'm working on, and get stuck into the ones that mean something and that are going to really affect everything, which is both from a personal perspective and a project perspective. Then that's really helped.
Yeah, no, definitely, Chris. I hear what you're saying. So whenever the team is short and it is lacking, it's very easy to get caught in the trap of thinking, why am I doing everything? How come we're short in resources? And that alone, that kind of negative thought pattern can pull your energy away from focusing on exactly what you can be doing and controlling what you can be trying to find the most impactful. As I said at the start, for me, it's definitely quality over quantity whenever it comes to our time. What's going to give me the most bang for our buck, if you want to call it that way? What's going to have the greatest impact? And that's where setting out the plan comes in. There's a few other techniques that I'm not sure if you've come across before, but we'll jump into now. Has anybody ever heard of the Eisenhower method or used the Eisenhower method or seen anything like this before? No? Gilberto? You've seen it, Chris? Yeah.
It's very hard to do.
Yes, I have seen it.
Yeah, it is very hard to do, Chris. I totally agree. It takes a bit of dedication to make sure you're doing it. Gilberto, sorry, had you ever seen this one before?
Yes, I have seen that. I have seen that in a couple of subjects.
Similar things.
Different stuff courses, yes.
3 years ago, whenever I first come across it, I was going through the MBA. I was kind of in that role of the operations manager, probably about 6 or 8 months. There was a lot of things coming at me on a daily basis, and I really struggled to find the time to understand which I should be doing. And I came across the Eisenhower method, and it really helped me out. I practiced it religiously for kind of 6 months, and Kelly, for the like of yourself that hasn't seen it before, the principle behind it is all the tasks are kind of identified that we need to be doing, whether it's a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I had some tasks on this that was maybe 6 or 8 months out down along the line, and then they're all categorized, so they fall into one of these boxes, which is either important and urgent. The idea is that we do that now. Important but not urgent, we decide and schedule a time when we're going to do it. And quite often I would have tasks that like a strategy or longer term things that we were working on in the business, maybe buy an extra plant or whatever it was. I would put them on and put a date on it, maybe 6 months down the line or 3 months down the line to look at. It was still important, but it just didn't need to be done right now. And then the next one was important, and not urgent. We would look to delegate these tasks. And a lot of times people, and certainly in a stage in my life, I thought delegating tasks was just kind of handballing work to people. It was a thought that I had in my younger years. But the more that you actually kind of look at it, the more I can grow, develop and train people around me. You've heard me talk about investing in people before. Delegation is a tool that I used for that whenever I really understood it, to help them grow and develop. But it also meant that things were coming off my plate that I didn't have to do. The one that I like the most is if it's not important and it's not urgent, let's look to delete it or eliminate it. These are these old meetings that we're having that go on for too long and there's no value in. It's the old processes that we've been doing just for the sake of it. It's maybe things that we're doing in our own personal life, spending hours watching TV whenever we could be doing something more productive. For me, whenever I came across the Eisenhower method, it just gave me a pattern. I have seen this used on the back of kind of windows. I've seen it used on whiteboards. I've seen it used on Excel spreadsheets where we would put dates of things to be done and allocate it to people. For me, as I said, whenever I first come across it, I give myself 6 months where I used it pretty much every day to get into the habit of looking at it, to get into the habit of going, okay, I've got 12 hours today. What are the things that I'm going to need to be focusing on to give us the most impact to the business, to the organization? What's going to move us closer towards that completion date or to the mission of the business? And that was the way I worked. I got into the habit of looking at it in the morning. And usually anybody that came to my door or had a problem or rung me, it was all urgent to them. Everybody's problem was massive. It needed to be dealt with now. So everything would go into the urgent box. But then what I would do is once it's there, I would look at the bigger picture and go, okay, in terms of our objectives that we're trying to achieve as an organization, is this problem that they think is super urgent? Is it important in the big picture of things? And then I would decide, okay, maybe it's not urgent. So it would go in and it would get a date that would get assigned to somebody, or we would have a chat on why it wasn't important. It's important to give them feedback. Hey, look, I understand you think this is the biggest thing in the world, but because X, Y, and Z, this is what we're focusing on. Or as I said, I would look to see who I could delegate it to. The idea is that you as a leader, you can focus on the most important things that's moving you forward, while also the important things, well, the things that aren't just as important and not just as urgent, that we can get other people to learn, to grow, develop by doing them as well. So I really like this method. It really helped me moving forward and got me through some very busy times. Now, it got to the point where the habit was built. The mindset was already there. As I say, now whenever something comes into my mind that I have to do something, first and foremost, I usually go to delete. Is this important? Is this going to take us closer to where we need to go as a business? Is this going to take me closer to where I need to go and whatever I'm training for outside of life? And if it's not, I get rid of it. So that's now a mindset that I have. That pattern of using this for them few months every day, it built in that mindset into my head. What's adding the most value? What do we not need to be doing? And then I was able to work back from that. So as I say, for me, it's not so much how you use it. It's not where you use it. It's more the mindset that comes along with it. Does anybody have any kind of questions on that one or comments that they maybe have it? Have you had similar experiences, Gilberto or Chris, whenever you used it?
Yeah, I don't have further questions for this topic. I think that, I second that you say. I have a rough idea about that. It's important to, recall, maybe improve that area as well.
Gilberto, I know you talked earlier about having a list. And before I used this regularly, I used to have a list. And I used to just work at the list and start and go down. But what if the important things are down lower on the list? Or what if I forget to look at the list? Or what if I don't think? That was my experience with lists. What I liked about this was it put it into the importance brackets. It put it into what we really needed to be doing. And again, hey, look, it's like any tool in life. It's great, but if we don't use it, it's not worth anything. So again, it's building a habit around it. Chris, what was your experience with it?
I actually really struggled with it because I didn't really have the opportunity, and because I tried this as a more junior engineer, I didn't really have the opportunity to decide that it wasn't important, and I couldn't push back, I couldn't delete it, and I couldn't delegate anything because I didn't have people to delegate it to. So it ended up just being another to-do list. As I'm moving through, it's becoming more and more useful. So I'm picking it back up again now. But it does take a bit of habit to get into, I try and do it at the end of every day.
That was the thing for me. I set times, Chris. It was kind of right in the morning, 7 o'clock, whenever I got in, I'd look at it. And last thing in the evening, I'd have a look and see what I needed to move around or what I'd actually achieved on the list today as well. But you're right. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that review and celebrating those wins and what you have achieved is hugely beneficial to doing this sort of stuff. It reinforces that positive behaviour, and
then you can actually see that you're achieving things. It's building that momentum, that growth for moving forward, Chris. I totally agree. Yeah. Kylie, what was your thoughts on it? On the list. Do you think is it something that potentially would be beneficial to you?
So without knowing about the Eisenhower method prior, some of the practices I have actioned in the past, I have unknowingly had something similar that I've worked to. Yeah, 100% right. It comes down to dedication, and getting into that, forming those habits. And then, like Chris said, you need to celebrate your successes. Don't focus on, the parts that you haven't achieved. Be happy to move them around and celebrate those successes that you have managed to achieve. And, at the end of the day, it gives you that great sense of achievement. And, you can start the next day afresh. You're not stressing on it.
You're not worrying about coming into work the next day.
Exactly.
There's nothing
and that's
worse.
Definitely, my role that I was doing prior to the one that I'm in now, my supervisor role, 15-hour days. It was very easy to get into the trap where, if you didn't reset the next day, you were already setting yourself up for almost not failure, but not setting yourself up for success by any means.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The next little one I want to put out there, I don't know how you all do with it, is the power of saying no. This is one that I definitely struggled with in my junior years, because I would say I was a people pleaser. I've always been kind of that approach. So somebody come and ask me, can I do something? Yeah, of course I can do it. Even if it meant me staying an extra hour or 2 hours at work to get something done, I didn't have the ability to say no. It just wasn't there. It wasn't in my nature. And that was something that was a huge challenge for me that I had to learn and grow and develop. So it's really important to be able to kind of say no. How does everybody feel about that? Is there anybody that maybe struggles with that as well?
Yeah, for me it's difficult to say no as well, because the difficult thing is that sometimes you actually think that you can do it, but when you're going to perform the task, you see that, oh, this is taking longer than what I thought, and I have struggled with that. And for me, it's like the same, we are on the same page. People pleaser, like you said.
Yeah, it is. Look, it can be very much a common trap for high achievers or people that really want to go and perform at that highest level, is sometimes we have to realize that we just can't do everything. And whenever I say the power of no and saying no, I don't mean flat out saying to people, no, we can't do something. It's more a case of explaining, hey, look, this is the current challenge, and maybe if I drop a few things here, or we take on extra staff, or we do something else, then we can achieve it. But currently, at the way that things are at the minute, I'm just being upfront and honest, and it's something that we can't achieve. So once I was able to look at it from the point of view of not just flat out saying no, I'm not doing it, because I think it's important to make sure that we're being as constructive and as positive as possible, then it was easier to repackage it and say, okay, look, currently with the situation, I just don't have the time or the capabilities of doing it, but let's look at how we get them capabilities, or what I can maybe move off to somebody else or do something. And that was a big step forward for me. The other one is setting boundaries. Again, people pleaser. It's hard to set boundaries sometimes. It's really important to manage your time, that sometimes we need to set boundaries. For me, where I struggled with this one, especially as my career kind of developed and I was covering more and more people, I went from managing 30 or 40 in a project as a supervisor, project manager, same kind of numbers, to the operations manager, where we were kind of managing up to 250 people in the business, to have an open door policy and everybody come to you with them problems on a daily basis. That can soon start mounting up. What I had to do was start setting a culture in the business where it's very much an open door policy. If it's a problem, if it's a challenge, we want to talk about it, we want to hear it, we want to work through it. Or if the door's closed of my office, it means I'm in an important meeting, or I'm looking at something that's important to the business. Unless the building is burning down, just give me the chance until the door is opened again, or until the meeting block is finished, and then let's come back in and look at it. And I found that once I could start creating that culture within the team, and the team understanding, okay, look, this is important for how we work, not just for myself, but I really encouraged my other team members, the other project managers, the other supervisors, to make sure that they were taking the same approach. So it was a culture across the business where everybody started to realize the importance of time, being able to be respectful of other people's time too, which I think sometimes can be missing from a lot of the teams and environments that we work in. Everybody thinks, especially in the mining space, everybody seems to think we've got so much time, it doesn't really matter. How do you find setting boundaries, Kylie?
Definitely got better over the years. I can very much admit, a big part of the past has been, that people pleaser mentality. And it does take a bit of practice to say no and provide those reasonings, but then also setting those boundaries as well. So yeah, I think I've definitely improved over the time.
Good. Yeah, look, it's important. Gilberto or Chris, anything you want to add on setting boundaries or saying no?
I found getting everybody in a room at the start of a project, or and getting everyone together to be able to set those roles and responsibilities has been quite a good way to set some boundaries.
Yeah, so you're setting the standard from the beginning, Chris.
Yeah, that's it. So, you get everyone in a room, everyone talks about how they see the world. It doesn't work out all the time, but for the vast majority, everyone's got their role. Everyone understands what's going on. They know the inputs that they need from other people. The other people know the inputs they need to give them, and then it works on down the line. So I found that to be quite good in terms of setting boundaries. And that way people don't always come to that one person like a Glenn or myself or whatever. They always go to the project manager or the team leader, whereas they should be able to go within the team, and that sort of disperses that pressure.
Yeah, so they try to follow that hierarchy of control with people to go to the right things instead of bypassing people, Chris. And for me, you're 100% right. Creating that culture and setting them boundaries early on in anything is vitally important. That's where we get their attention and a lot of the other things that I do. Accountability is a huge thing that I believe in. So if you've set the boundaries early on, we can start holding people accountable to them later then as well. Sorry, Gilberto, would you something you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I think that in the last roles that I have had, I will say that most of the people are aware about actually what do you need to achieve, the time that you require for that. But in the personal aspect, definitely I need to work on that. I really need to work in those boundaries, because sometimes you really need to set that one.
You can get dragged a lot of different places in your personal life, Gilberto, that you maybe don't want to go. And look, for me, again, whenever I started to make that connection in my mind between, is it important to me? Is it taking to me where I want to go? Or is it just taking me further than where I wanted to go? It was a lot easier to say no, even in my personal life, to things. So unless it was, something that was high on my priority list in terms of my life's priorities, I tended to usually say no from it. So I'm sure that would certainly help. Time blocking is another aspect. I'm not sure if you have come across it or if you have used it before, but going back, Kylie, to one of your statements earlier on about using for things that you don't like doing. This is where I will use kind of time block, and I'll go onto the calendar, and it's usually Outlook now at the minute, but I'll go on and I'll just block out a chunk of time, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, to do one of them tasks that I really hate doing. And I know that once that time starts, I give it my full attention for the amount of time that I'm looking to do it on. It helps me stay focused, organized and productive during that time. And usually for me, it's kind of accounts or anything that's shitty. But in my previous roles, it was client meetings or things that was just more of a drag, more of a challenge. I would put it on the calendar because I knew it was important. And what it did was, if it was important, as I said previously, I would have that shared with everybody, so everybody knew I was out of touch for that length of time. And it just is a good way to put in the important things that we want to be doing, that we need to be doing. We stick it in the calendar so it's visible and there to see. Or whether it's something that we really don't want to be doing, it's got the same effect. It's there, we want to do it. Once I started to use the time blocking method and the calendar, it was easy for me then to start prioritizing what I should be going to and what I should be spending more time at. Does anybody currently use time blocking method? Have they found that useful in the past before the time blocking method?
Yeah, I certainly have. It's been quite good for those repetitive tasks that I've got around end of month reporting and things. So I'll block out a 4-hour period to smash out. Okay. I just know that on the first Tuesday of every month, then I'm doing this in the afternoon, and that's it.
That's where I find it really valuable too, Chris. Usually for the things I don't like doing. Kylie, is time blocking something you've come across before? Is it something that you think you could use in the future?
It is, and I have used it before, and let's just say there can be further discipline required because it's only going to work as much as what you commit to it. So, you know, and I will openly admit that, you know, I have blocked out some time frames, and when it's come up and notified me, you know, that, hey, 5-10 minutes time, you've got this time block, and it's like, I've just dismissed it and carried on with other stuff. The
other thing that happens for me, and I've left it down there in the last kind of last line, is remembering to review the schedule. Quite often I'll put stuff in the schedule and then not even remember to review the schedule. So you're right, Kylie, it can take a little bit of discipline, and it is very easy to just hit that reschedule and push it further down the line. I suppose what I was able to do, and this might be useful for yourself, Kylie, once I started to understand that, hey, look, my time's important and using it right. So I've went to the trouble of scheduling this so that I will show up. And it's not so much about what I'm rescheduling. That doesn't really matter so much. And sometimes in life, shit comes up and we just have to reschedule. There's no issue with that. Whenever I would get that urge to start rescheduling, I would start going, you're now creating a bad habit. So I linked that thought process of rescheduling to a bad habit that was costing me time, that was taking me further away from where I wanted to go. And once I could make that visual connection in my mind, it got a lot harder to reschedule that meeting and or reschedule that task and not just jump in to do it. So that may work for you, that visual connection in your mind between, hey, look, if I reschedule this, it might seem easy now and it might be avoiding what it is, but really stop, ask yourself, is that taking me closer to my goals that I want to achieve? Or is that taking me further away from my goals that I want to achieve? And once I was able to do that, it was a lot easier to choose the better option, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Okay, so the impacts of effective time management. And I think this is an important little discussion because we talked about what bad teams look like whenever there's poor time management. But I want to get your thoughts on what teams look like whenever the time is being managed effectively and well by the leader and by the team as a whole. What effect does that have on the team? Anybody? Gilberto?
Well, maybe
Chris?
the delivery of the projects could be performed, on time. You can be maybe one step ahead or some situations. Maybe have time to plan and reschedule according to the the things that you can see in the foreseeable future. You have more time to achieve your goals tranquil way, or maybe more calm without the stress, that kind of stuff, I will say.
So the team's a lot more calm. They can pick up on that. There's a lot more plans in place. Chris, were you going to say something about?
I was going to say I've actually struggled with this to a degree at times because I might be managing my time well, but some of the other team members struggle, and I find it hard to help them
manage their time
without micromanaging them and all that sort of stuff, and all the negative connotations come there. So I've actually found that if I'm more organised and more effective with my time, it can create an issue there.
Okay, look, I would say in general, Chris, the more organised and the more time that you have freed up, it should be setting a good example to your team. But it also, if you're that good and organised with your time, it should free you up a little to have them discussions with the team. Look, that's a whole topic for another day, is holding people accountable to their time on the team. What I have found with it is the more we can build time management into the culture and how important it is, and then we start holding people accountable for that time management, that's where we start really seeing the progress. And whenever I'm saying holding people accountable, I'm not talking about taking people in and chastising them or watching the clock every minute of the day and telling them to think, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm talking about having the conversations about why they maybe struggle with time management, what part they're potentially struggling at. So that coaching, that development, that aspect of leadership is really coming out. The more we're talking about it as a culture across the board, then the easier it is to pull people up and have them friendly conversations about, hey, look, I've just noticed that, the last few things that we've touched on, it's slightly running later. I know you've noticed you're a bit disorganized. What's going on? How can I help you as a leader? Them discussions is a really important aspect of that, Chris. And as I said, some other webinar we can go into the accountability one, but it's something that a lot of leaders really struggle with, between that micromanagement, being that kind of boss that wants to encourage, grow, develop, versus the one that beats them over the hands with the sticks type approach. Kylie, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, it can definitely impact the team. So, and agree with Chris, like in the past, you can do the best that you can do, but if it's not flowing down to the team, or, you've got to lead by example, basically.
I think that's an important thing. Look, for me, the teams and the leaders that I've worked alongside, the ones that I've been involved in, were the good leaders seem to make it look as if they've got all the time in the world. They will be there, they'll stop, they'll talk to you, they never look flustered, they never look pressure. And the team just naturally kind of flow from that. They're also the leaders that have the time to go and have the chat with people and say, hey, look, what's going on? I just know that I notice there's a bit of a challenge here going on. So for me, that collaboration, that high team morale, there's a very close link with that time management. And I'm just very conscious of the time that we have left. So better decision making. Some people, might think, what's time management got to do with better decision making? Well, if we are mindful of our time and using our time well, we can stop and have a look at how we're making decisions. And I've included 5 ways that decisions can be made that really give us the most impact. The data-driven decisions, where we get to stop, have a look at that data to make sure that our biases aren't playing a part in it, that we're looking at the decisions objectively. If we're bad time management, we get there, we don't have time to do that. We're just rushing into things, we're making decisions which may or may not be beneficial to our overall outcome. We get to empower our team with decisions by asking them. Sometimes as a leader, we can think we have to give them all the answers, we have to have all the answers. But if we empower the team to come up with their own decisions, more often than not, and sometimes that takes a little bit of time, because it's easy for me to just rattle off what I think they should do, whereas it takes maybe an extra 15-20 minutes to ask the team, hey, look, how should we approach this? Getting their different perspectives, getting their buy-in early on is really productive way to help make sure we get them right decisions as well. Scenario planning, weighing up the different options which could impact the business, what's going to be the potential best outcomes for the business, is also another useful tool. And again, only something that we can do if we make the time for it. Risk management, risk reward from which decision we make, is also another way of making them better decisions. And then just the continuous learning, by having the time and freeing up time for ourselves to stay informed about what's happening in our industries, to see what potential tools are coming out in the future, maybe what technology is coming out that can help us save time and improve how we look at our process. If we don't free up time to look at all these things, we are constantly going around putting out fires. So it's important for us to make sure that we can stop and free up that time. Is there anybody that wants to add anything on that better decision making?
Yeah, 100% correct. You make much better decisions when you're calm, cool, collected.
Yeah.
You can communicate them clearly. People have enough time to absorb them, ask any questions. There's nothing but positives.
Yeah. I totally agree, Chris. And look, that's where we've talked a lot about our time today, but really the more we can educate our teams in their time management as well, then it's not just the decisions we make, it's the decisions that we make the whole way through the team and through the business and through the projects that have that greater outcome to where we want to go. Was there anybody else wanted to add anything on that section? No? All good. The next couple of little minutes on the It's Time program that I mentioned earlier on at the start. This program has been structured for leaders wanting to move to the next level, or wanting to manage time or confidence, or all the leadership traits that we have. I said at the start that we can't separate the person from the actual leader. So what I've done is I've designed this program in a way that we have got 2 or 3 one-on-one sessions where we talk about the limiting beliefs, our patterns, our habits, our goals that we want to achieve. They're all personal things that I don't think people are open to discussion in a group. Whereas then we've got group sessions which covers everything from confidence, communication, influence, accountability, mastering time. We go a bit deeper into strategic planning, continuous improvement, all the other aspects that make up really quality leaders we go into on a group session. And them groups are usually anywhere between 2 and 10 people, just so that it's quite small and people can interact and take things away from it. So at the minute, there is, it's already quite heavily discounted, but for anybody that's attended this event, or for the people that might follow up on the video after it, for the next few days, we're offering another 10% off it. Quite simple. If you're maybe interested, or you've got people on your team, leaders on your team that you think would benefit from coaching, whether it's around time management or one of the other things that we've discussed, reach out. Quite often, well, pretty much all the time, because it's leadership coaching, it can be used as a tax write-off, or most companies will actually offer to pay for it as well. So if you know anybody that may be interested, feel free to flick it on. It's a case of just scheduling a strategy call to see where they want to go, what they're currently struggling with, and putting a plan in place on how we can get them there. That's really taking us into then our Q&A for today. I'm very conscious of the time. We've pretty much 2 minutes left, but happy to stay a while longer if you've got the time. Has anybody any questions or anything they want to touch on that we've went through today at this stage?
Oh, maybe I just want to say thank you for the invitation, Glenn.
Okay.
It was really nice to hear all this from you, have this feedback, maybe this information that you can use for improve your time managing skills and stuff like that. I really appreciate that.
That's really good. First and foremost, Gilberto and Kylie and Chris, thank yous for attending and giving up your time to come and actually take part in it. It wouldn't have been as much fun without you three, I must say, because it would have been a lot less beneficial. Yeah, look, as I say, I'm going to be around for another few minutes, but if anybody has any questions, anything that they potentially want to touch base on time management or anything else at this stage, I'm certainly going to be here for a little while. I do appreciate all your inputs. It's been really a privilege spending the time with you.
Thank you very much, Glenn. It's been a really good session. So, and you definitely get the benefit out of it being, more interactive than just,
sit and listen.
Walking through slides, yeah. So that engagement makes, puts a completely different focus on the session. So yeah, well done.
Ellie, thank you very much for attending and for giving up your time. And as I say, if any questions come to mind from any of over the next few days or out there, just reach out, send me a message on LinkedIn or out there. I'm definitely here to help. Okay.
No worries.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Cheers, guys. Have a good day.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.